and they showed me this space underneath the pitch of their roof. And they said, do you think you could put a little door on here? Maybe make it look like a bookcase so nobody knows there's a little room behind there. I determined the door had to swing into the room. So the first thing I did was just build a simple box frame, put a couple hinges on it, just put a couple screws in there, get it on and test it just to see how this thing could work.
So that's as big as the cabinet can be, because as you can see, it needs room to open. It just barely clears right there. So I built that, put the hinges on there, and then you see I had to move them a little bit just to do some tests, just to get it opening and closing in the right location. And again, that's just kind of a flimsy box, but it is my model, so I know my size. So with my box in there, and I knew which size it could be, I knew how big I had to make the frame in order to cover the edges. And you can see I'm dealing with a wall here that's not plumb. It's much more narrow down there at the bottom. So that's why I made my box as big as it could and still open. So I made a frame to go around the edges, and I had to use the multi-tool to cut out the baseboard so I could get my frame in there. I could do a test fit and see how that's gonna go. Oh, look at that, right in there. And this floor is uneven, so when this is squared up, I'm gonna have a gap here. I'm going to put the quarter round. I'm just going to continue it around here, so that'll cover that up. And you can see that I had to go 3 inches here to cover up the unevenness of the wall that's not plumb. So now this thing, when it closes, it's going to have a little overlap. So that'll hide everything that's out of square and not plumb. So that looks great. So I'll get the frame in place, and then I'll continue modifying the little bookcase there. Got this 1/4 inch whiteboard, putting it on the back using box nails. So I put on one edge, and then I get the whole box square, and then start putting on the other edge. That way my box isn't crooked, it'll be nice and sturdy. And I added this diagonal support because that will keep it from sagging, provided it's positioned properly, and it is.
Now, whenever you're adding a diagonal to, in this case, a bookcase or a door or an exterior gate, it's important to put the bottom of the diagonal on the hinge side and the top on the strike side. Because if it wants to sag, it'll push the force into the hinges. If you put it the other way, it will not prevent it from sagging.
Now with the box finally built, we do a test fit. Looking good, working good. Now it's time to get the lock in. Now I had to get very creative with this because obviously the lock can't go up front and they want a doorknob. So I had to put these 2x4s back here on the back of the cabinet. And because of that, wouldn't be able to use a standard latch bolt, because then my doorknob would be right, right here. So using a repurposed latch bolt with a 5-inch back set, so that can go in there and it'll be able to engage on here, and it'll still give me enough room to get a doorknob in there. So with that in place, and there's no need to mortise this because no one's going to see it, and I got my strike plate on there. Look at that. And I've got it set so it's tight, so it keeps that thing closed nicely. Let's see how it looks outside. I love it. But it's done and ready for paint, all trimmed out. Their final plan is to modify a hollowed out book to hide the doorknob in some way. They might change the doorknob so that once this thing is filled with books and it just looks like a bookshelf, if there's a need for escape, they'll open it up, click the handle, and get on into the safe room. That is freaking cool.